Thank you.
Laura Cohen, British Ceramic Confederation. We've got about 90 businesses in our membership across the country, 75% of which are SMEs. This is building on something Ed Davey mentioned. We have got the net zero carbon challenge.
Yeah.
What will you all do to help ensure we meet these very challenging targets while staying internationally competitive? We've got to avoid offshoring our industry and exporting jobs and importing carbon. And in particular, we're paying smaller businesses, we're paying 80% more than the EU average on electricity. So that's closed that decarbonisation path to our sector. We're not getting compensated in our sector. Only 6 out of 90 businesses are.
It's an enormous question to end on, but help us out.
Okay, so do you want us to be quick? So just really like 30 seconds. First of all, I'm very proud as a government we're one of the first in the world to legislate for net zero. What are we going to do to make sure that we remain competitive as we meet this important goal? One is to have a reasonable date. We've said by 2050. It's a perfectly reasonable date. If we could do it sooner, the better. But by talking about 2030 and things like that, it is just ridiculous to think that you can't do that without increasing the cost massively on business and leading to a mass offshoring program. The other thing also, of course, when it comes to electricity costs, is to make sure we've got sensible alternatives that can provide a real sort of base load that is reliable. That's why nuclear is an important part of the mix. Anyone that's ruling out nuclear, again, isn't thinking sensibly about our long-term electricity needs and the cost.
The scale of the challenge is absolutely enormous, so the scale of investment has to be enormous too. So that's why we've put the Green Transformation Fund forward as our prime objective, £250 billion, which will help the conversion from fossil fuel into alternative energy sources, both solar and wind and wave power that's now developing right around the country. That will enable us also to ensure that we support individual companies and the development of how they produce their product itself. Can I just say one thing as well on the ceramics section? On ceramics, I met the group of companies up in Stoke as well who were stockpiling as a result of the threat of Brexit. That's one of the issues now that we have to deal with very, very quickly because of the impact it has. And we can't rely on a system where we then start introducing a new relationship in our trading relationship with Europe that will impede our trade. And the ceramics is one of the key sectors I've identified.
There are 7 industrial sectors that are considered to be energy intensive facing the problems you're talking about. Ceramics, but there's also steel, there's chemicals, there's paper and pulp, and a few others. And when I was Secretary of Energy and Climate Change, we worked with all of the industry organisations to look at the pathway to 2050, because it is so challenging for those sectors, you're going to need to have a very active partnership between government and those industry sectors. And when you look at their processes, they're all different. You can't have one size fits all. And a lot of the investments they make are very lumpy. So they may make a very big investment 1 year, but it's going to take a payback of 30 years. So unless government is helping those firms and those sectors at those moments, they're not going to be able to afford the new technology and prepare for it. So we're only going to manage this if we are really, really working in partnership with a proper plan. We were the first country in the world to have this roadmap. One of the big technologies in that roadmap to make it happen was something called carbon capture and storage, which I was developing as Secretary of State. 2 months after I left office and Conservative control, it was abolished. A complete disaster for industrial decarbonisation.
Sorry, 2050 is too late? We have to bring forward that?
Sure.